Find out if I ban Lee Priest from RXMuscle now. I created Species Nutrition with one mission in mind: to provide bodybuilders and serious athletes with no-nonsense supplements that work. I put my name and reputation on every bottle of Species Nutrition products. If you want to be your absolute best, join the evolution.
Welcome back, RX Muscle, another live episode of Ask Dave, our weekly 30-minute question and answer show. And for the third or fourth week in a row now, we are doing this in a live format. So if you have any questions, you can get them down below in the live chat. We also took questions, of course, on our Facebook page, on our Instagram page, as well as on the RX Muscle, the community page as well. We're going to go right into the questions. The first two questions on the show, of course, from the Dave Palumbo Experience app. First question, it's like two versus scenarios. One, we'll go with this one first. Box squats versus regular squats. And then I guess if you want to go beyond that, glute ham raise versus leg curl.
Well, you know what my answer is going to be, Sid, right? First of all, you're supposed to be the switcher. There you go. All right. Regular free weight squats, there's nothing that compares to them. I don't like box squats. I don't like the fact that you sit down and you have to re-engage the muscles. It's number one, it seems like it's cheating to me. And number two, it seems like there's a risk of injury there if your balance is off a little bit. Free weight squats are so good because think about all the muscles that are required to balance that bar on your back so that you don't go side to side, you don't go forward and back, you don't fall just straight down. Plus the leg muscles lowering you, lifting you up. It's a total body movement. And the mass that you build from squats is not just in your legs, and which is glutes, adductors, quads, hamstrings, even calves are engaged to a certain degree. I mean, but it's the whole body, because the whole body is holding that weight. And when you get really heavy, if you're doing 500-600 pound squats, that upper body is doing a lot of weight too. That's why after a squat workout, you feel like you want to throw up because your nervous system is like traumatized almost it's like you're shell shocked essentially, because your whole body has been completely brutalized. And that's good. That's good for muscle growth, as long as you're taking days off and you're not trying to do it too many days a week. You're not trying to do too many sets. You're eating sufficiently. You're sleeping sufficiently. That's going to make you grow. Nothing can replace that. Now, obviously, I understand that there are people that have back injuries and knee injuries that they can't squat. But if you're healthy, okay, and you just don't like to squat because you're too lazy, really was what it amounts to, and it's more comfortable to sit on the leg press machine, then you're cheating yourself out of the best gains that you can possibly make. And obviously leg extensions are great, front quad, type movements, because they put direct pressure on those quadricep muscles. It's the only thing lifting that weight. And so I would have to, if I had to pick the two exercises, I would say free weight squats and the leg extensions. I can't hear you, Sid.
Of course, I mute myself. Second question, again, these first two from the Dave Palumbo Experience app. For natural athletes, I've learned from you to give them natural diuretic. If I'm pronouncing it correctly, is it UVA or UVa?
UVa Ursi.
Yeah, right. UVa Ursi. 800 mg with every meal the day before the show. My question is, do the competitors keep taking during the show day or maybe just after prejudging?
You got to remember, diuretics work with fluid. So you have to be drinking if you're going to take herbal diuretics, you know. So you wouldn't take the herbal diuretics like when you're not drinking, which is contest, show day. So what I usually have guys do, or women, is 800 milligrams of UVa Ursi with every meal on Friday. If you have a Saturday morning prejudging, then you do your prejudging Saturday morning. Then if you go out for like a post prejudging meal, a lot of times I have my athletes do burgers and fries and about 8 ounces of Diet Coke, you know, to rehydrate a little. And then I'll give them another dose of 800 milligrams of the UVa Ursi. But when they're not drinking in between, you can't just take it, because what's going to happen is it's going to sit in your gut. It's not going to get dissolved. It's not going to get absorbed. And then when you do drink at the end of the show, you're going to have all these diuretics laying in your system, and it's not going to be good. So yeah, don't use them when you're not drinking. So on show day, the only time you would really use them would be after prejudging, if you're taking in, you know, about 8 ounces of fluid. And then, you know, ostensibly if you think you need them in the days following up because you're holding too much water, but you're not going to do them on the contest day except for that one dose. Now, these two questions were from the Dave Palumbo Experience app. If you guys haven't seen it, you can download it from your Android store or your Apple store. It's an app. It's $29 a month. You get access to all my writings, all the videos I've ever done in one place, consolidated, well organized. I do a Q&A video every single week. So it's like a separate Ask Dave video just for the app members. I answer everyone's questions in the open forum in the app. So everyone sees everyone's questions and everyone's answers. So it's a real good learning experience. I put up all my protocols, off-season, pre-contest cycles. And I mean, there's so much information in the app. It's a wealth of knowledge, and it's constantly evolving as we add information to it. So it's a great learning experience. I know with Christmas coming up, it's a great stocking stuffer to get someone, especially a bodybuilder bodybuilders are hard to buy gifts for. It's like, what do you buy for the guy? A chicken breast? Buy him a subscription to the Dave Palumbo Experience app. And I want to thank you guys for all the support you've given me over the years.
Before we go to our Instagram, Facebook, YouTube questions, live chat questions, our friends at Titan Medical, Dave, are running a current special, if you want to tell the audience more about it.
Well, they just got HEXORELIN in, which is a really good growth hormone releasing peptide. That and some of the other ones work really well, but supposedly HEXORELIN is a more potent version of one, and they said that just became available. It was never available before, so they're doing a special. If you call them up, and at TitanMedicalCenter.com, you get the phone number from there. Call them up, tell them Dave Palumbo, RXMuscle sent you. They'll give you a good discount. Also, their probably best-selling fat burner right now is the tesamorelin. Excuse me, is the I can't even. I'm drawing a blank.
Tesamorelin.
I don't know if it's the other one. Terfesolene. Oh my God! Help me out in the chat here, guys. Terfesolene is the new fat burner that's working really well. It's kind of like it affects 3 different neurotransmitters in your brain, and it seems to suppress the appetite a little bit. Without slowing your digestive tract. So, all the GLP-1 agonists like Mounjaro and Ozempic and all those semaglutide, they all kind of slow down your digestive tract, which makes you feel full longer. This kind of just takes away the desire to be always eating. And it seems to have some direct fat burning effects on its own. And so people have been finding they're tolerating this better, this fat burner, and they're getting good results from it too. Now, I know a lot of people combining the two together, the GLP-1 agonist with this, and they have a special if you wanted to combine it together or you want to get it individually. You can contact them at TitanMedicalCenter.com. I'm sorry, I flubbed the name.
All good. So we're going to go again to our live chat questions, our questions that we take off our YouTube page as well as on Facebook and Instagram. Before starting with the test cycle, what should I look for specifically in my blood work? And then they go on to ask, are there any chances for hair loss?
Look, hair loss is a weird thing because, it's very genetic. You can see there's a lot of bodybuilders in our industry who really haven't lost any hair, and they're my age, and they haven't lost a single hair on their head. And I don't know how they took the same drugs, they just are resistant to it. And other people, I know guys that have lost hair when they were like 18 years old, they were already balding, and they hadn't even taken a steroid cycle. So hair loss is very genetic. So when you take anabolic steroids, a certain percentage of the stuff you take is going to convert to DHT, especially if you're taking testosterone or any of the DHT, converting drugs. How that DHT affects your hair follicle is is genetic. So I can't say that one person who takes testosterone is going to lose hair and then another person might not lose hair. So it's hard to predict. I never lost a hair on my head till I was 30. That's absolutely true. So I started about 22 years old taking anabolics. So I was on 8 years, never lost a single hair. My hair was almost too thick. I was always like, oh, my hair is so thick. It's like curly. It's hard to style. And I should have kept my mouth shut because I jinxed myself. When I hit 30, all of a sudden I started losing my hair. So you just don't know. Some guys lose it younger, some guys lose it older. I know guys that I said, you made it to 40, you're not going to lose your hair. And all of a sudden they started thinning a little bit. So you just don't know when it's going to happen. I see Hadi Chopin just went and got the hair done in Turkey. And he's not, he's no spring chicken, to me, he had a good head of hair, but he must have noticed he started losing it. So everyone's time clock is completely different. If you take testosterone, is there a greater chance that you could lose hair? Absolutely. If you're nervous and paranoid about it, you can take finasteride, 2.5 milligrams a day to kind of block the DHC. But if you don't really convert that much DHC, you might completely zero out your DHC and then feel terrible. So my suggestion is when you go on testosterone, go get blood work after a couple of weeks and see what your DHC levels are. If they're too high, maybe consider taking Testalize first, 3 pills twice a day. That will kind of naturally lower DHC levels. If it doesn't help and you think your DHC is still too high, you can go and try the finasteride. But there's no predictive ability about, okay, if you take this much testosterone, you're going to lose this much hair. It's just, that doesn't exist.
So we've been getting this question now really since yesterday. And then I guess we got them in the Ask Dave questions as well. And that is about Lee Priest. Any truth to a rumor that Lee Priest is banned from RXMuscle?
You're fired, Lee. No, I didn't fire him. No, I don't know. We just, I haven't done any shows on Fridays. I don't know why, because I traveled to Qatar last week, and then, we had another Friday that was no good. And this past Friday, I was doing something. So I think we just our schedules hadn't been coordinated. Lee had traveled a couple of weeks. So yeah, we'll get back to doing the show on Fridays again. It's just been really busy, and I think Lee has been busy, and Lee got sick there for a little bit as well. I was just talking to him yesterday because that guy Jackson Tippett died.
Yeah.
He was an influencer in Australia, and Lee had just worked out with him like 2 weeks ago. Lee sent me pictures with him. So and Lee's always participating in all the chats. If you're on After Hours if you watch that every Tuesday, Lee's always in the chat. So yeah, no, we're good with Lee. We just like I said, we really didn't have a chance to really, touch base. I think once this coming weekend with the Prague show is done, the industry kind of has a little bit of a lull. Obviously, we get the NPC National still, but then we'll start doing the shows on a regular basis. Because once we hit December, January, February, it's kind of like there's nothing going on. And that's when we have more chance to do the fun stuff. And that's usually when Lee and I shine, and we'll get Romano involved and all the guys. So
speaking of Prague, yeah. So Lee's good, Dave's good, we're all good. And we will get Lee back on the channel. Speaking of Prague Pro, we're trying to figure out what their schedule is. They have no information right now as far as on their website. I know. Yeah. So we're trying to figure out exactly what time prejudging begins, and then if we can get an approximate time for when the men's open class, because obviously everybody's going to want to see Chris Bumstead take an open stage for the first time. And the reason I'm telling you all is because we're trying to figure out when we're going to do our live reaction show, just like what we generally do for the Olympia or for the Arnold Classic. We're going to do the same thing for this, obviously, given, the uniqueness of the event. So once we have that information, we'll pass it along to you. And, but we are planning on having a live reaction show for at least when the men's open class steps stage. Let's
get our guys in the chat here. They have nothing to do. They're obviously not at work. So guys, why don't you go find out when this Prague Pro prejudging is starting for us and let us know. And then Sid can post it. There we go.
All right. So I'm 59. I've been on TRT 120 mg sip a week for many years. I was thinking of adding 100 mg a week of Deca just for joint comfort. Could I run that long term without a break, or should I occasionally cycle off? If I should cycle off, how long should I run it, and how long should I be off?
It's a good question. And it seems logical that, like, if you're taking 100 milligrams of testosterone, right? And then you add 100 milligrams of Deca, you're only still taking 200 milligrams combined per week, right? And a lot of guys just take 200 milligrams of testosterone as HRT therapy. Now, I can only give you my own personal experience with it because I'm a hyper responder, and I didn't realize I was a hyper responder until I started doing HRT and in very small dosages and realized how my body responds. So I was doing 100 milligrams of testosterone, actually a little less, like 80. And I decided I had a surgery on my ankle, and I went to one of our clinics and they gave me some Deca. And I said, I'm going to take 100 milligrams a week of that, in addition to the 80 milligrams of testosterone that I was taking, to see if I can, heal this ankle a little faster. And it worked. But you know what? I got this synergistic effect from the two drugs together, and I started really putting on muscle. Like, I was surprised. It was not the equivalent of just upping my testosterone. It was like a absolute stacking effect, even though they were in very low physiological levels. Now, once again, I am a hyper responder, so maybe that was the reason why. And I only did it for like 6 weeks. So, but I put on like, about 5 or 7 pounds of muscle in that time period. So you're definitely going to notice a pharmacological reaction, even though you're in physiological range of the dosages. So to answer your question, this is a long-winded way of saying it, is I wouldn't stay on it indefinitely because there is some sort of a pharmacological effect going. I'd probably do like 8-week cycles of it. So do 8 weeks with the added Deca, and then maybe take 8 weeks off. And then if you want to come back to the Deca, for 8 weeks with the testosterone, then do it like that. This way, otherwise it's kind of like you're on a cycle year round. Now, granted, you'll stop responding, but I'm just wondering if the strain on your body, is not necessarily a great thing, especially if you're just looking for optimal health. Could raise your blood pressure a little bit, potentially. And I would like to see you come on and off the Deca, but you can stay on the testosterone consistently. That's not a problem.
So, all right, good. There you go. Jimmy has found out for us that prejudging is Saturday, November. So again, men obviously going to go last. So that's going to be at 2 p.m. Now I'm assuming that means,
is that their time?
Yeah, I'm assuming that means. So I'm doing the quick conversion to New York time. So that means it's going to be close to around 8 a.m. our time, New York time.
No,
US Eastern Standard Time.
If it's 9:30 a.m. their time. How is it?
No. 2 p.m. Because if men are going to go last, right?
Oh,
you have to imagine. That's again. This is according to what he thinks.
He didn't say men are going last, though.
No. He said okay. Open is last on the list, so probably closer to 2 p.m. Which makes sense, okay. Obviously, right? So 2 p.m. Prague time would be around 8 a.m. our time, meaning. We figure we probably, if we're going to do this live reaction show, probably have to go live around 7:15-ish, 7:15 in the morning. So I'm down. Let's do it.
All right.
We'll have some fun with it.
You can give me a wake-up call on Saturday morning.
So there you go. So, all right. So assuming this is the case, 7:15 a.m. U.S. Eastern Standard Time, so East Coast time. Around that time, we'll go live and we'll have some fun with it. And then we won't show you the actual video because it is a paid pay-per-view.
Yeah.
But I think it's pretty cheap. I think it's only $16 US for the pay-per-view. Right. So for your shot to see Bumstead on the stage and his open debut, not a bad deal.
We can do some screenshots we'll put up on the live on the feed. Yeah.
Right. Is there a possibility to have non-cancerous swollen lymph nodes? I'm having this hard rubbery pain. Was this pain less non-mobile swollen? Okay, swollen lymph nodes in my groin, armpits, subclavicular, under my jaws, in my throat, and behind my neck. They've been there now for more than 8 years, and I don't have any other symptoms of lymphoma. Wow. I visited a clinic once. Doctor told me to bring back an X-ray CBC, which turned out to be normal. Told me not to worry about anything and just keep checking my weight. I'm curious to know exactly what the reason is.
Yeah, that's weird. I mean, to have swollen lymph nodes for 7 years, obviously you don't have any cancer. I mean, because it would have grown by then. It's very bizarre. Usually I thought he was going to say for 7 weeks or 7 days. I mean, because obviously when you get an infection in your body or you get some kind of a viral infection, a lot of times the lymph nodes, because they're filtering the blood and all the pathogens out, they'll get swollen because they're doing their job of eating up all these bad bacteria or viral infections. To have a constant like swelling like that, the question is the swelling consistent because the blood is constantly being filtered and new stuff is coming in that the body's eating up? Or is there something in the gland, in those lymph nodes, that is the lymph nodes are basically containing and holding back? And what I would suggest probably, and especially since you've had them that long, you might want to do a biopsy on one of those things. Have them biopsy it and see what the heck's in there, because you might have had something really wrong with you at one point, and maybe the body has quarantined it essentially and cordoned it off. And it would be nice to know what it is. If it could be nothing, but it doesn't seem, unless you have some kind of severe allergy to something that you're ingesting, and then that's why your lymph nodes are on high alert, because they're sore. They get sore when they get that big. So I imagine it's not very comfortable, and it probably looks kind of weird. So I would check it out with you. I would see if you maybe need to get a biopsy of one of those.
We do get this question fairly often about exhibiting at the big shows. RPE, I love your species products, Isolite, Fiberlize. Have you ever considered showcasing at, say, goes on to specifically mention the 2025 Olympia with a species booth, samples, offerings, feature? I think it would be a boost to your brand, so on and so forth, given that you've had some relatively unique products and flavoring systems. So again, the question is, will species nutrition be making a return to some of the big shows in terms of the expos?
I think it's very important when a brand has no recognition or no one really knows what it tastes like or anything like that to do the shows. And we did, when I first launched this supplement line 15 years ago, we were at every show. We did all Weinberger shows in New York. We were at the Arnold. We were at the Olympia. We went to a lot of places, and it's expensive to do that. It's not cheap, and it's gotten more and more expensive, especially when you go to these convention centers, like the Columbus Convention Center, and for the Arnold and the, I'm sure I haven't even priced it out, but I have to imagine the resorts, the Las Vegas Convention Center is probably really expensive too. So you have to weigh it. What's the ROI on it? Is there a return on investment? Everyone kind of knows my brand already. And I think I could do better by offering, specials and deals and sales and let people sample the products that way, more so than me needing to go to these expos. Because first of all, people want me at the booth, and then I get stuck at the booth the whole weekend, and I don't really get to cover the show. So it's hard to do everything, So to me, I don't think for the stage my company's at, that it's worth having a booth. But I won't rule it out. I won't say I'll never do it, because we have some future plans where we're launching some big stuff. So there could be a possible scenario where we decide to have a booth, maybe even a combined RXMuscle species nutrition booth in the future. I won't rule it out. But for now, once I had my kids, it made it very difficult to organize these booths. And it's just too much. It's like a monstrosity. But I wouldn't say I would never do it. I think it's really good that companies get out there, especially new companies that people don't know, so that people can have access to it. But think about how many people go to an expo versus how many people are on social media nowadays. Back 15 years ago, social media was not that important. Matter of fact, there was no social media really. It was just in its infancy. So if you wanted to have your brand have recognition, you had to go to these shows. Nowadays, with social media, it's all, the business model has completely changed a lot. So you almost get more bang for your buck to focus your attention on social media marketing. So I won't say never, but probably not in the next year or two.
I was wondering if I should ask you this as to make a separate video, but we are getting some people asking this very question. Did you have a chance to see Aaron Singerman on the Jay Cutler podcast last week?
I did not, but someone told me about it. I think, hold on, my battery's dying for some reason on my computer. Looks like it wasn't plugged in.
It's the magic of live TV. Do we still got you? Oh boy. All right. So we're going to give Dave a bit of a timeout as Dave figures out his tech situation. This is not an episode of Ask Sid. It is Ask Dave. You're watching the right show. Dave is having some technical difficulties. So with that, we have a minute. I will talk to you all directly. We will have the live, the Olympia prediction contest results released today. We had to make some corrections. Full disclosure, again, after the Olympia, I had to go to the Dubai Muscle Show. I got sick in between. All sorts of things happened. We announced the wrong results, but we have the correct results for today, or right now, rather. So I will announce those today. And the reason I'm going to do that today is that we can quickly transition to Prague. Many of you asked for a Prague prediction contest, obviously, given the uniqueness of the show. We're going to have Chris Bumstead making his open class debut, alongside Martin Fitzwater, Sean Clarita, two-time 212 Olympia champion. And then you have some, Andrea Presti, three-time Mr. Olympian. And you have some rising stars in the mix as well. You have the likes of Horse MD, Christian Wolski. So if you are familiar with the European bodybuilding scene, you know who that is. Someone like a Michael Lucy out of Australia. So you have some dudes coming up the ranks that are going to be on this stage. So again, we'll have the prediction contest for that as well. Try to get that live probably by tomorrow/Friday. But
all right, sorry about
we'll
that.
have all that results. All right, we got Dave back.
Yeah.
Did I ask you the next question, or what were we talking about?
Ask it again.
Okay. So I don't know. Something was happening, whatever. And then eventually you had the tech issues. Anyway, we'll go to the next question. One thing that's been discussed recently, and again, we're talking about everything as far as what's in our food supply, what's in our bodies, not because of the food supply, microplastics. With microplastics in the news recently, should I look at switching to metal versus plastic shaker cups? I mean, amongst other things, do you think the metal whisk in a plastic shaker cup should be reviewed?
It is scary. I'll tell you this. I'm a big RFK Jr. fan, and I'm so happy that he's involved in the current cabinet that's going to be, cleaning up all the crap that's in our health system and food supply. Plastic is worrisome. Supposedly we're consuming tons of plastics and we don't even know it. It's in everything. I don't think that the plastic in a shaker cup is necessary. This is my theory on it, and I could be wrong. So I'm just putting it out there. I feel that when you mix oils with plastic, that's not good. So if you're heating up food in a microwave that has fats in them, I think the fats can leach the plastics into there because they're fat soluble. They're not water soluble. So I think that if you're drinking water out of a bottle or a shaker cup or something like that, I think you're safe. I don't think you're going to get the plastics leaching into the water. So I think we have to be careful with plastics is when you're putting oil. That's why you never buy oil in a plastic bottle. Species Nutrition's macadamia nut oil. Right from the beginning, I've always used glass bottles, and they're way more expensive, and they're way more expensive to ship because they're heavy and they break. So believe me, if I could have used plastic, I would have. But you don't put oil into plastic. That's a no-no. Water in plastic seems to be okay. Now I don't know if you're heating it up to 1,000 degrees. It's because it's sitting in the sun, if that's going to do anything, but it doesn't seem like the plastics are water soluble that much. So I think the plastic shaker cups should be absolutely fine. Once again, if you heat stuff up in a microwave, I started doing it in a bowl, like a ceramic bowl. Now I'm trying not to, but every once in a while I just get lazy and I throw plastic in there, but I don't think you have to worry too much about it. But once again, oils and plastic don't mix. So that's where you should be very wary. Your protein shakes in a shaker cup are
fine. Before you got cut out, we were talking about the interview with Aaron Singerman on the Jay Cutler podcast. You have not had a chance to see it yet, right?
No, I asked someone what he was said, and I don't think he said a lot. I think he just was he probably just throwing some cheap shots at me. I don't even know what his problem is, to be honest with you. I think he got upset because I covered his case when he went to jail, and he didn't like that, and he thought because I was his friend, I should not have talked about it. He didn't say that to me, but I'm assuming that's the reason, because there's no other reason other than that. And that's just selfish on his part. He knows we're in a news organization. I got to cover everything. So it is what it is. If he wants to be, combative with me, or if he doesn't want to be friends with me, I have no problem. I had a good relationship at one time. He was I was kind of like a mentor to him, and his success, I'm very happy for. I always want to see people be successful. I don't wish bad on anyone, whether I'm currently friendly with them or not. So I hope he sells his company at some point. I know they're trying to sell it and makes a lot of money, and future success. I think his family's great. His kids are great. I only wish him the best. That's I'll just leave it at that.
Can the anti-inflammatory effects of cannabis? We get a lot of questions about cannabis lately. You had a whole big
Yeah.
discussion yesterday on kratom on After Hours. Can
Yeah.
the anti-inflammatory effects of cannabis negatively impact gains like ibuprofen can?
I don't think it works by a similar mechanism. Like the NSAIDs, inhibit inflammation because they inhibit the prostaglandin response in the body, which we know is necessary for signaling for muscle, repair. I don't believe cannabis works by that mechanism, so I don't think that that's a problem. Now, if you're using cannabis and the THC, obviously for some reason we find that THC does cause more aromatization in the body. If you ever see these like pothead kids that are like in their teens, they almost have like breasts growing because they're converting a lot of their testosterone to estrogen. So you got to watch that effect of it. But most bodybuilders either don't have gyno anyway, or they're on some sort of an anti-estrogen. So that's usually not an issue. But yeah, I don't think the anti-inflammatory effects of cannabis is anything to be concerned about.
I don't know if you've answered this kind of a question before, but it's about testosterone, and can it change a bodybuilder's sexual orientation? Is it true high dose test can change a bodybuilder's sexual orientation?
I don't believe that. I don't think anything can change someone's orientation. I think when you're on a lot of testosterone or anything that jacks your testosterone or jacks your androgen content in your brain through the roof, it makes you hypersexual. So I think people do things and take risks and think about, fantasize about things that probably they wouldn't do if they were on normal levels. So I think it makes you it can make certain people who are predisposed like a sex addict almost. And I think that people will do stuff that they normally wouldn't do. I think that the recreational drugs more so will cause some weird, intersex type exchanges like that. But I don't think testosterone. The only thing that I ever experienced, and I think that other people have admitted to, is also when you're taking like something like Trenbolone, like all you want to do is have sex. It just raises your sex drive really, really high. And much more than you would normally have. So I think it does that. It's not changing anyone's sexual orientation. Now, that's in men. If women take a lot of testosterone, I think that can certainly confuse their brain because their brain is not supposed to have that much testosterone. And I do think that some women who take a lot of androgens can potentially start desiring the other sex. They or the same sex, I should say. Maybe they might start thinking that women are attractive, that where they didn't feel that before, because they have this conflicting signal in their brain. I think that's more of a possibility than men becoming homosexuals because they're on testosterone. I don't see that happening. I think if guys are doing that stuff, it's because that's what they like, and their sex drive is higher. But I don't think it's converting any men into homosexuals now.
So we've talked about cannabis yesterday. You guys talked about kratom. Another thing that, and I'm glad they asked, is because I feel like the last few years now, Olympia, Arnold, there's always this one booth. They're always handing out mushroom gummies, and I actually haven't even tried them yet. But I must have my suitcase that has all my camera equipment for all these big trips. I have like about 18 packets of mushroom gummies, and I don't even know whether or not to even try them. But are taking mushroom gummies going to affect bodybuilding in any way? I'm one of your clients. Just figured it'd be a good question for the show. Have you had any experience with these mushroom gummies?
I haven't tried mushroom gummies, only because most of these gummies have a lot of sugar in them, so I don't like to use them. But I have a client, my friend Matt, who grows his own mushrooms, dries them, turns them into powder. He sends me his own little combinations of lion's mane and all those real cognitive mushrooms that are supposed to really help with mental focus. I put them in my coffee every morning, a teaspoon of them, and I feel great. I think cognitively, they definitely help you. There's a lot of evidence to show that mushrooms are good. Now, there's another, there's what we call the magic mushrooms, right? The mushrooms that are hallucinogenic. That we're not talking about those mushrooms. We're talking about the ones that are good for cognition and that are healthy. Then they have the ones that are hallucinogenic that people use with PTSD, and some bodybuilders I know experiment with them, microdosing them because it helps them with depression and other things like that. I don't have much experience with that at all, and that I would say could potentially be negative to the bodybuilder because it might it might make you not want to train as hard. I don't know, so, but I think the good mushrooms, which is, the lion's mane is a big one, turkey tail and stuff like that. Those are really good for cognition. And it might even be helpful to better focus in the gym. I find I have better focus in the gym on them. Matter of fact, I was working on a greens and, greens, fruit extract, mushroom extract, and probiotic all in one powder that I could potentially be coming out with in Q1 of 2025 that would accomplish just that, because I think that that's an area that we haven't really covered in species nutrition that I think could fill in one of the little gaps that we have in the product line. So I do like them, and I don't think they have any negative. They only have positive effects for bodybuilding.
From Tommy, what would a low globulin score indicate on a blood test? The internet warns about kidney problems, but my creatinine and every other marker is perfectly fine. So low globulin score, what could that indicate?
The problem with a lot of these blood work is these values will change from blood test to blood test, depending on if you're dehydrated, if you're well hydrated. Globulins are the amount of proteins in your bloodstream. If it's low, theoretically, it could mean that you're leaking protein into your urine, which is possible. A lot of people don't realize when you work out, there's something called exercise-induced proteinuria. Okay, protein and then urea. And what that means is that you're peeing out proteins. That doesn't mean that your kidneys are damaged. What happens is when you train really hard in the gym, the kidney tubules become permeable and they allow proteins to leak into the urine where they normally wouldn't do if you didn't work out. So bodybuilders will notice protein in their urine, and especially because we eat a lot of protein. And the doctors could interpret that as kidney damage. Meanwhile, your creatinine is fine, your cystatin C is fine. So take it with a grain of salt. Like I said, a lot of these doctors don't understand what bodybuilding does to blood work. It does screw it up. And when I say screw it up, I mean it skews the results so that you think something's wrong and there really isn't. Perfect case in point, and I've said this 1,000 times, liver enzymes. Liver enzymes always are high in guys that have tremendous muscle mass and who work out really hard, because they don't just come from the liver, they come from the muscles. They're enzymes that are found in liver cells and muscle cells. When you break down muscle tissue, you leak these enzymes into the bloodstream, and then you go for a blood work and the doctor says, oh, your liver enzymes are 5 times the normal. You must be in liver failure. No, you're not. That's just coming from muscle. So some doctors understand that and other doctors don't. When I was going through all my little surgeries with shoulder replacement and thyroid, and I wasn't able to train, the way I wanted to, my liver enzymes for the first time in my life that I can remember were normal because I wasn't going to the gym. Once I started going back to the gym, now I'm training again, they're high again because I work out hard. So you got to understand it and understand how to interpret blood work, based on what the person is doing to their body in the gym.
Let's go to Bilal Hamid, a good friend of the show, on our Instagram page. Would 500 mg test E and 600 masteron E be a small dose for cutting? As someone who has been taking gear for 5 years specifically, should I be upping the doses or adding more compounds?
It's a moderate dose. I think if you want to maximize your results, you should raise testosterone to 1,000 milligrams per week. I've said this before. Look, I've experimented a lot, with myself and other clients. I find the sweet spot for maximizing muscle gains with the least side effects is 1,000 milligrams of testosterone a week, with about anywhere from 300 to 600 milligrams of an anabolic combined with that. That seems to be the sweet spot for building muscle. If you can afford to throw some growth hormone in there at 2 to 4 IUs per day, that's all you need to grow, an anabolic with the testosterone and growth hormone. To simplify it, that's really the most simplified way to say it. And you know what? If you're using long-acting injectables like that, and only using 2 compounds, there's really zero toxicity happening in your body. And you're going to keep your appetite really good because your appetite goes down when you're toxic. That's why orals kill your appetite, because they're very toxic. If you don't take toxic compounds, you're going to be hungry and you're going to be able to eat. You're going to be able to grow better. So if you can't grow taking 1,000 milligrams of testosterone a week and 500 milligrams of EQ a week, or 500 Deca a week, with 4 IUs of GH, then you're not training right, or you're not eating enough. It's not the drugs. That's a nice cycle. That's a very, very potent cycle that you can take for a long period of time and not have to worry about toxicity.
Let's take another one from our Instagram page from Nico Cantemir, another good friend of the show. The last night before a competition, do you cut the water and then eat your last meal, or do you cut the water after your last meal?
Well, it depends what time you go to sleep. So if you're going to bed at 8 o'clock because you got to get up at 4 in the morning, then you might be cutting your water at the same time that you're eating your last meal. But I know a lot of guys don't go to bed till 11 o'clock at night, and I cut most people's water about 8 o'clock. So they're probably eating their last couple meals with no water, meaning that they're just sipping to get down the food. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. Just like you're gonna sip the next day when you're eating your food. You're not gonna be guzzling water the day of the show. You're gonna be sipping. Remember, food itself has fluid in it. If you're eating a chicken breast and some rice that you cook, think about what you how you cooked your rice. You added water to it. So there's fluid in the food you're eating. It's not like you're not taking in any fluids. You're getting plenty of fluid from the food that you're eating. That's why sometimes rice cakes are not the best things to eat the day before the show. The day of the show, it's fine. But the day before the show, if you're doing only rice cakes, it's so dry. You're not giving your body enough moisture to absorb the food. So you got to be careful of just doing rice cakes. Whereas regular rice is hydrated with a lot of fluid. So it helps, drive those carbohydrates, that glucose into the muscle cells better. But yeah, you can certainly eat food without actually guzzling water with it. Yeah.
Let's take one from our live audience from Wooston Fuchs. I believe that's how it's pronounced. If I'm wrong, you can correct me. Can you say something about lipoprotein A? My doctor said it is more harmful than LDL, and there is nothing you can do about it. Mine, he says his is 5 times too high.
Yeah, it's supposed to be another marker for cardiovascular disease. The problem is that if your triglycerides are normal and your lipo B is high, or your LDL is high, it doesn't seem to matter. That's according to the latest research out of Japan. So you have to have the lipo B being high, the LDL being high, and high triglycerides to have a problem with being blockages. In people who have super high levels like that, I have to imagine it's very genetic. And in those cases, what I tell people to do is go get a cardiac CT scan with contrast, okay? And then you'll know if you have any blockages. If you have 0 blockages, okay, with a 5 times lipo B score, it doesn't matter. You're obviously not laying down any clots or blockages in your coronary arteries. More than likely, though, if your triglycerides are very high too, that's a tremendous risk factor. And then you can combat that with diet. And the best way to do that is go on a ketogenic diet. Eat up all those fats, because what high triglycerides is it's the liver stores triglycerides, which are basically the way fats travel in the blood. If the liver is filled with fats, because it can't get all the fat out of the blood, there's still high fat in the blood, triglycerides, then you're said to have had fatty liver. What raises triglycerides? Sugar, carbs. So if you cut back carbs, what happens is your body starts gobbling up all these triglycerides for fuel. And before you know it, the bloodstream's cleared and the liver's cleared, and you're back to baseline. So that's the best way to combat that. But most bodybuilders don't have super high triglycerides because we eat a good diet, and we train and we work out. So don't get so alarmed by that value just in and of itself being high. If you're worried, go get a cardiac CT scan, which I recommend you do anyway, and then you'll know one way or another.
David Green, first part of the question was about best foods to cut fat, but the second one I think is a little bit more compelling in terms of, oatmeal. We do get a lot of questions about oats. He wants to know if instant oatmeal will stop his gain. So I guess, in other words, we talk about slow cooked oatmeal versus instant oatmeal. Is there a difference?
Well, instant oatmeal is just pre-cooked oatmeal. So they've pre-cooked it for you, and then they've dried it, and then they put it in the canister. So it only needs like another minute in the microwave with a little bit of water to get the thing ready to eat. Whereas old-fashioned oats, like that are slow cooked oats, those have never been cooked. They've never been subjected to water. So it takes longer because they're not pre-cooked. So pre-cooking it doesn't make them unhealthy. What makes them unhealthy is if they add sugar. So you want to read the ingredient list. If it's just pure oats, they're fine. They're just as good as the old-fashioned ones. It just takes less time to cook them. If you're reading the packet or you're reading the thing and it says sugar or all they have all these little additives in
So
there.
like the brown sugar, cinnamon ones, whatever like that.
Those are terrible, right? You don't want to eat them.
We'll take one more question. Again, these questions from our, it's cool. We're starting to get a lot of questions now from our YouTube, the community page or whatever. So this is one that you have answered before. I guess the risk of cancer, when you're taking HGH or test, the correlation between HGH and cancer. And and again, the second part of this question, if HGH creates new cells, then why are ex-bodybuilders, for lack of a better phrase, tiny when they stop?
Okay, two separate questions. First of all, GH and anabolic steroids don't cause cancer. If anything, they probably prevent it because they enhance your immune system. Remember, the immune system is what eats up cancer cells. So whatever causes cancer to grow in your body, I have no idea. We haven't figured it out yet. There's a lot of different causes of it, but it doesn't cause it. If you have cancer in your body, testosterone will not make it grow faster, but GH will. Okay, so that's so it's not causing cancer, but if you have cancer, it could make it grow faster. Now, the second part of the question, what was the second part again, Sid?
Second part of the question, if HGH creates new cells, then why, when bodybuilders come off, when they're retired?
Okay. So what GH does is it activates something known as satellite cells, which are also known as stem cells. We call them stem cells now. These are undifferentiated cells. They're nothing. They're just globs of nothingness that surround your muscle fibers. And what GH does is it tells these cells become muscle. How does it become muscle? Well, it creates a nucleus. It turns the cell into a muscle, a tiny muscle cell that fuses with the existing muscles in the body. But they're very, very tiny. But because it has a nucleus, this cell, it can get bigger. So now you're adding new cells to the existing muscles. Whereas anabolic steroids, they don't do that. What they do is they tell the existing muscle cells to get bigger. GH creates new muscle cells. The problem is they're very small. Okay, so now if you work out and you take steroids, those new small cells can get bigger, and now you have more cells than you had before, so you have technically more muscle. When you detrain or you stop working out or you stop taking anabolics and you get smaller, okay, what's happening is the cells are just shrinking in size. You still have the same amount of cells, whatever you got. Let's say you added 10 million cells over the course of your 15-year bodybuilding career, more than you had before. You still have those, they're just small. So the reason why bodybuilders look small is because you can still detrain all those cells down to a smaller number. What people find is that if they go back on a little cycle, they start training again, it comes back fast. The reason why your muscle comes back fast, we call that muscle memory, is because you have those nuclei there. They've been built and they're fortified. They're just waiting to get bigger again. They're waiting for a stimulus, whether it be in the gym, extra food, anabolic steroids. You do have more cells there, and that's why you can get bigger faster. It's just when you get smaller, you get small. It doesn't matter if you have, Ronnie Coleman cells. If Ronnie Coleman doesn't work out, the cells shrink, and that's really what happens. But he still has more cells than everyone else has. They're just smaller in size.
That's going to do it for this episode of Ask Dave, another live episode of Ask Dave. And this has been like the fourth week that we've done this in a row. Really enjoying it. I think this is going to be the format that we're going to stick with. So again, thank you all for your live interaction, for your questions, for your feedback. As always, we had a great time, and we're going to do it again next week. The one thing, or rather two things. One, as mentioned when Dave was having his technical difficulties, Olympia results will be announced today. The prediction contest will be resolved. We have everything resolved. Second, once we have that squared away, and once we get the schedule for Prague, we will announce our live reaction show for the Prague Pro for prejudging and finals. Now, my belief is that it's a 2-day show, meaning Saturday is going to be prejudging. That's my belief. I could be wrong, but again, with these Pro-Am shows, especially the ones they have in Europe, they're structured a little differently. So we'll figure that out. But once we do, we'll announce the schedule for our live reaction show, even if it's going to be early in the morning. Again, we'll have some fun with it. We'll react to seeing Chris Bumstead on an open stage for the first time. And as always, we'll have some fun with you guys as well. If you haven't already done so, subscribe below, hit the notification bell so you won't miss any of these live shows or any of the upcoming contests that we're going to be covering. And for the return, the inevitable return of Lee Priest to RXMuscle, of course, for Iron Rage and for the confessionals. And yes, we will get the confessionals back up. We did not ban it. Somebody asked, is because of Trump's tariffs, that's why you banned the confessional. That is not the case. Anyway, if you like what you're watching, hit the like button, comment below. And as always, we appreciate all of your support. For Dave Palumbo, I'm Sadiq Faruqi. We'll see you guys next time.